Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here, and welcome to the second episode of my brand new series called Movie That Didn't Need a Sequel. The second example of a movie I can say which did not need any sequels is a comic book movie. And yeah, now, this comic book movie, guys, is one of my favourite movies of all time. And yeah, it was once my favourite movie of all time, but I've grown to, like other movies more than this movie. And yeah, but I still think it's a great movie in its way. And yeah. And this movie, guys, which in my opinion did not need any follow-ups or sequels, is for none other than 2019's Avengers Endgame. So yeah, now, this movie, guys, is my favourite MCU movie of all time. And it was definitely a movie where I was so incredibly hyped for when I saw this. And yeah, I could not wait to see it, and I was so really hyped for it, and yeah. And the waiting really paid off because it became my favourite MCU movie. And when I first saw it, it was my favourite movie for a couple of years. But whenever I rewatch it, I did notice a couple of, questionable moments and some things that I wasn't really much of a fan of, really. So, yeah. But for what it's worth, it is still my favourite MCU movie. But, yeah. My favourite movie of all time or now, guys, however, would be Spider-Man 2. But this is still my favourite MCU movie of all time, yeah. I will not turn back on my statement of saying this is my favourite MCU movie, but yeah, it's not my favourite movie of all time. My favourite movie of all time, as I just said, is Spider-Man 2. Specifically, the director's called it Spider-Man 2.1, but yeah. So on to the topic of why I think this movie did not need any sequels, per se, because, it's not getting, sequels. It's getting movies that take place after it, and also shows as well. And the first thing we got after Endgame was sort of like an epilogue, which was Spider-Man Far From Home, which was a movie that I do, sort of like, guys. I thought it was a good movie, and yeah. Not my favourite Spider-Man movie all time, because I just said one of my favourites is just them, but yeah. It was like a decent epilogue in my opinion, and yeah. And I can tolerate its existence, and yeah. Because I like to pretend, guys, that Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home are Sony movies, not MCU movies. I like to pretend they're Sony movies which happen to feature Tom Holland's Spider-Man in his universe, really. That's how I like to see it, really. That's how I picture it, because those are all the ones I can tolerate, because they're all the ones I enjoy the most. And then, of course, after Far From Home, the MCU went on a big hiatus, mainly due to the coronavirus, shutting down productions of many of the upcoming movies and shows, and also, as well, delaying some which had already been completed, like Black Widow. And the first MCU media that came out after Far From Home, in terms of stuff, was of course the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I've not seen yet, but I intend to watch soon. Because I want to see how the story ends. And then, of course, we got a show which was called WandaVision, and I was going to watch it, guys, but when I saw the trailers, I immediately lost interest. It didn't look like my kind of show to watch at all. And, I am not paying to watch a a comedy. I'm not paying to watch a sitcom. No. And yes, guys, I am also aware of the fake Quicksilver in it, which was an absolutely dumb move. Lots of wasted potential right there. And then after WandaVision, we then got another show, which was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And yeah, this was honestly a show I wanted to watch, guys. I wanted to watch it to see, what Falcon would get up to, as the new Captain America. Because at the end of, this movie, Steve gives Sam his shield, and he becomes Captain America, like in the comics. But I found out, guys, from several sources, my favourite YouTuber and several of my friends, that in the first episode of the show, Sam gives up the shield and he gives it into a museum. And that really annoyed me. It made me lose all my respect for Falcon as a character. And because he broke his promise to Steve in Endgame. He said to Steve he'd do his best. He'd do his best. You call putting the shield in the museum doing your best? No. Goodness me. So yeah, I did not watch the show, guys. I did not waste my time watching it. So yeah, I skipped the show. And then of course we also got a show about Loki, and I was not interested in the Loki show because it was only about the time displaced Loki from the alternate timeline, you know, in Endgame, who escaped in the 2012 alternate 2012 thing, and yeah. And I don't want to watch a show about some random version of Loki, you know, who I don't know that well. I want to watch a show about the Loki that I have grown up with and I've grown to like all the time. Like, I'd rather have done it as like a prequel show, showing what Loki was up to between the events of Thor: Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok, showing how he took over Asgard, you know, while Thor wasn't there, you know. That's what I would have done. But no, instead got this show, which I'm not interested in. And yeah. Then with regards to movies, we of course got Black Widow, the first movie of Phase 4. But guys, I like to pretend that Black Widow is a Phase 3 movie because technically it is, because it takes place during the Infinity Saga after the events of Captain America Civil War and before Infinity War. So I like to keep it that way, really. Although it wasn't really that much of a good movie because the things that ruined it for me was I hated Taskmaster. They really butchered a very great Marvel villain in that movie. They really ruined Taskmaster. And I also did not like the post-credit scene where it shows this Countess who was in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and she's telling Yelena and she's framing Hawkeye for apparently killing Natasha, which is not true because in this movie, Natasha did not, you know, Clint did not kill her. She sacrificed herself so the Avengers could get the Soul Stone on Vormir. He did not kill her. So I was absolutely furious with this post-credit scene, and yeah. And it made me lose any excitement I had for the upcoming Hawkeye show. So yeah. And when it comes as well to other things after Black Widow, after that, in terms of shows, we got the show called What If, and I only watched the show, guys, for the sake of seeing Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, reprising his role as Black Panther in a posthumous performance, which is his final thing he's ever done before he died, so rest in peace. And the only episodes that I liked was the ones where he was the Star-Lord, Black Panther character. Everything else I couldn't care less about, and yeah. Like, I was hoping this show would be good because if there was things I wouldn't like, I could say that, you know, don't worry, they're not canon, don't worry, but I hated most of the show, so yeah. Well, what a waste of time that was. Then into the movies, we got Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and it was good, I will admit. It was a very good movie, but yeah, still nowhere near as epic as Endgame or Infinity War or any other my favourite MCU movies like Iron Man or Captain America Winter Soldier and stuff like that, but, you know, it was still, you know, decent to watch, but there were some issues I had with it. I mean, if you want to see my issues, go check out my review of the movie. And then, of course, we got what is, in my opinion, the absolute worst MCU movie of all time, which is Crapturnals, as I call it, or Eternals, whatever, but I call it Crapturnals because I despise that movie with a big passion. And this movie, not only was it a complete bore fest from start to finish, because I nearly fell asleep watching the movie, pretty much. Like, the events of the movie made the whole events of Endgame absolutely pointless because it was revealed, according to Salma Hayek's character, Ajax, that apparently Thanos' snap, you know, stopped the emergence of a Celestial, and Tony's snap and Bruce Banner's snaps, which saved everyone, you know, reawoke the emergence, and it began to happen again. So, basically, you're making the ending of this movie absolutely pointless because Bruce and Tony did those snaps to save everyone and to kill Thanos and his army. And you're making it out as well they have triggered an end-of-the-world scenario. Like, how could Marvel do this? So, yeah. And what I don't get is, if the Eternals were so dedicated to stopping the emergence, why didn't they stop Thanos from doing his snap in the first place? Like, that is just so dumb. Like, I don't care about, you know, how they were told not to interfere. They should have stopped the snaps from happening in the first place, you know? Goodness me. And I don't want to talk about crap too much. If you want to see what I think, go check out my rant that I did when I saw it. Then after in terms of shows, we got the Hawkeye show, and I watched the first episode, guys, for the sake of, seeing Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld, because, they're great stars, in my opinion, but I did not like the premiere. I absolutely despised it, and because from the moment it brought Clint back into the drama, when he's supposed to be retired after Endgame, I was done. Because in this movie, Clint retired to be with his family, and this show, it brought him back into the drama, and I hated that. And yes, guys, I'm also aware that the finale does bring back Kingpin from the Daredevil Netflix show, and I heard from many sources that they really ruined his character in the episode, and I don't want to have the pain of seeing that, so I'm not watching the rest of the show. No way. But thankfully, however, guys, we got probably what is, in my opinion, the best out of Phase 4, which was, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home in December. It came out on the 17th, I saw it on the 17th in my country of December. And it was, in my opinion, the best of Phase 4, but unfortunately, I have many issues with it. For example, I personally did not like the ending where Peter Parker asked Doctor Strange to make everyone forget who he is, because that means that, he's going to be erasing all of his happy adventures with Ned and Michelle Jones and the Avengers who survived Endgame, who know who he is. Like, he's making all of his past adventures meaningless now, and I personally hated that. So, yeah. Like, the ending was just so depressing, in my opinion, guys. And, yeah, like, I get what we're trying to go for, but I was depressed with this ending. It was just heartbreaking, and I especially was heartbroken about Happy Hogan forgetting who he is, because unlike Ned, Michelle, and Doctor Strange, who of course were there when this battle was conducted, Happy did not get a chance to say his goodbyes to Peter, because the last time he saw him was when he was cradling the dead body of Aunt May when she died. And that was it. The next time he saw him was when he didn't know who he was. He was unaware of who he was. So, yeah. And that means that, Happy can no longer look after him after Tony asked him to, because he entrusted Happy to be Peter's bodyguard. But now he can't do that. So I was very angry about that they made Happy especially forget who he is. And also, of course, we got a mid-credit scene, of course, which featured Eddie Brock on holiday after the events of Carnage's, credit scenes. And this credit scene I personally did not like. It was disappointing, because I wanted Venom to take part in the battle in a movie and to get to meet Spider-Man, because he wanted to meet Spider-Man. But we never got that, because he stayed at this, resort. He was on holiday, and he got sent back to his universe, and he left a piece of a symbiote on the counter of the bar he was in, which of course was there with setting up sequels. And I personally hated that, because that is very unfavorable to the comics, because Venom in the comics was not introduced as a piece of symbiote on a bar. He was introduced as an astronaut from outer space, carrying a symbiote. I mean, it's sad that Spider-Man 3 did it better than this movie, when it comes to origins of Venom. So, yeah. Yeah, because Spider-Man 3 didn't show it coming from a bar, did it? It came from outer space, the symbiote. So, yeah. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, guys, Endgame is where the MCU ends for me, and the movies coming out after No Way Home do not interest me in the slightest, and the movies have made me realise that, I just don't see the point of continuing after what is, in my opinion, the perfect closure that Endgame gave to its characters, because, Steve retired and got to be with Peggy, Clint retired, Thor joined the Guardians of the Galaxy, and yeah, and Tony and Nat, they both sacrificed themselves, and, Bruce Banner went back to being a scientist, working despite having a permanently broken arm. And I like to pretend as well, guys, that Falcon is fighting crime as Captain America, and he never gave up a shield. So, yeah. Because what's sad, guys, is after I heard what happened in Falcon and Soldier's premiere, I wish now that Steve gave a shield to Bucky now. That's what I wish now after the premiere, because I lost respect for Falcon, and I very much prefer Falcon Earth's Mightiest Heroes over Falcon in the MCU. So, yeah. And when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, guys, I am, of course, aware that the past version of Gamora does disappear in Endgame's final moments, but, I like to leave that as an ambiguous thing so that, it can let us fans decide what happens to that version of Gamora. So, yeah. And of course, I like to just pretend that Loki disappearing wasn't said to anything, just, you know, Loki disappearing, really. So, like, always escaped. And, yeah, because I personally didn't really care much about that random version of Loki, but, yeah. So, yeah, guys, like I've said before, Endgame, for me, is the true end of the MCU, and I had to keep it that way. So, yeah, whenever I do, like, a marathon of the MCU in the future, guys, I'm going to stop at Endgame. So, yeah, because, as far as I'm concerned, guys, Endgame is the true end of the MCU. I will probably buy, you know, like, films like Far From Home and No Way Home on DVD, like I've got Endgame here, because, like I said before, I like to pretend they're Sony movies, guys. So, yeah, that's what I like to pretend. I mean, because Sony's owns Spider-Man anyway, so, yeah, Sony owns him. So, yeah. So, yeah, like I've said, guys, Endgame is the end of MCU for me. So, yeah. So, guys, this is me doing the second episode of my movie dinner sequel. And this one will, of course, for Avengers Endgame 2019. So, you know, drill, guys, be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to leave comments what you guys think of Endgame. We'll see your thoughts on it as being the closure to the MCU or not. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe for more coming in the future. If you'd like to be a member, you can press join, use the PayPal or you can description. And I love you 3000.